Just a second here.
Is someone listening to soccer right now?
Okay.
That's Ryan. You know who it was. Sorry, I muted it. My bad.
All right. So yeah, if everyone could mute besides Warren, we'll give Warren a few minutes to kind of talk about where he came from and his story, and then in maybe about 10-15 minutes we will ask questions. And if you have something to say on the while he's talking on the initial part, either write it down or use the chat bar on the top left there, and so we can kind of make it go a little bit faster. So yeah, take it away, Warren. Tell us where you're from, how you got into the business, different things about yourself, and we'll start off.
Yeah, I was going to say we can always just turn the TV around the background so I can watch the soccer game since I don't have sports Fox soccer here. So.
All right.
Kidding, don't do that. So does anyone have any specific questions? I know last time we talked a little bit about my history and all that, and what I do. That's kind of boring. You can find that on the internet. And if anyone had any specific questions, it might liven it up a little bit.
I heard that you were actually involved with the movie Twister. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, originally, Peter Isla, who was a writer, I think he wrote Patriot Games and a couple other movies, he was really interested in doing a script kind of like on a character based on me. And then what happened was, make a long story short, Spielberg and Crichton got together with that crummy book. And they decided to go with that. Warner's got the distribution deal, so the story about me kind of got shelved, unfortunately. And that's how they were very good. They gave me the rights, or they actually purchased a photo of mine for the CD and the DVD and all that. So that was a very good deal. So in the long run, it worked out to be a good relationship. But the movie, they never hired an actual consultant because Michael Crichton was dead against it. I guess when he writes a book, he wants to have 100% control. So they never actually hired a consultant. They had a meteorologist on the set for safety, but they never actually hired someone to consult with. So that was kind of my limited involvement with it.
Gotcha. So what do you think about all these different, TV shows with the storm chasing and all of that? And what are some of the big myths about a tornado? And what's something that you've seen personally that most people don't know about tornadoes?
Well, I think the big misconception about a TV show is that you go out and it's crazy, and every time you go out you see something, and it's wild. They do a lot of fancy editing on a lot of the shows, and they use other people's footage. It makes it look like, these guys are magical, able to go out and shoot all this. They edit it to make it look like it's, they're out every single time seeing something, which is very rare. I mean, this year I saw 6 tornadoes on April 14th in Oklahoma. And then in May, I only saw 1 tornado. And I mean, we're talking about a lot of driving, being in the right place. It's a lot more difficult than what the TV shows. And also a lot of stuff the TV guys do. We don't go out there and yell like little schoolgirls and run around. Every time we see something, we don't scream, if it's right next to us. That's all, really hyped up drama. It's not really anything like that in the real world. And we don't take all the stupid chances they take. They get really too close and put themselves and anybody would ever have to come rescue them in danger. And reports of them driving like crazy and stuff like that. But we're a little bit more subdued. And we have the same amount of excitement, energy around the storm. We just don't kind of lose our mind usually once in a great while.
Yeah, it makes for
the biggest misconception.
Yeah, it makes for great dramatic TV. But yeah, a lot of amateur chasers are going to get hurt if they do what they do. If they do what they see on TV. So. Yeah, unmute if you have a question. Carl's on the bottom left, so I'll just work my way left to right, and everybody have a couple of questions. So, Carl, take it away with whatever questions you got.
I'll just start off with one. I have a few, but just out of courtesy to everyone else. Given the patterns of the current systems going through in the early start to tornado season, do you have any type of forecast or predictions for our region or any Midwestern region in general?
Looks like the tornado season is going to really move north pretty quick right now because the heat's building in the Central Plains, and like I'm in Phoenix, say it's going to be over 100. So that hot air ends up moving into the plains and it pretty well, what we call caps it off. It brings in a warm layer of air, really subdues the chance of the storm. So I was looking at the forecast, and now it looks like it's going to be mostly up above Nebraska, at least for the next few days. It may be a week or two where it moves back down south, but right now it's really, even up into Canada, I was noticing they're probably going to have some problems up in that area.
Thank you.
All right, and Jonathan?
Yes, Warren, as somebody who's an amateur chaser with a little bit of a meteorological background, what equipment do you recommend for a chaser? Meaning software, radio, what kind of stuff, basically?
On iPad with lots of games, because you're going to be sitting around waiting hour on hour on hour and hour. My girlfriend came out and chased me this year. I think she found that out really quick, that you sit there for literally hours driving in your car, and really you have to have some entertain yourself with. And that's a great thing. iPad has been the greatest thing in the world. You're able to sit there and play games on. But the main thing is to have some kind of data you can get from both off the internet and also something you can get off the satellite. Because a lot of times when you get out there, the throttling of the bandwidth is incredible, and you'll have absolutely no signal. So you've got to have like a satellite type, both GPS. I have a Garmin I carry that has radar too. That's the most important thing. If you have radar and information, you're pretty safe as long as you don't put yourself in some dangerous position.
Do you have a specific program you would recommend, like Weather Defender or that kind of thing?
There's almost all the weather radar programs have their own use and advantage. Radar Scope's a good one. With the Allison House data, which is a data program you can provide, it gives you a little bit higher resolution radar. Storm Spotter's another one. Weather Wall's one that has real high-end dual pole type radar on it. Almost any of the radar apps, you can even get the free ones from the Weather Service. They don't update as often, but they're free and they're some pretty good service.
Great, thank you, Warren.
Welcome,
I have a
Chelsea.
question for you. I wanted to know, like, in the kind of years that you've accumulated experience in a situation, extreme weather, potential tornado, to what degree are you looking at instruments and kind of staring at your computer, or what degree are you looking at visual cues of a storm shape, or what kind of triggers for you, like, this is a viewable situation, and what's a dangerous situation where you need to move? Do you have triggers that you look for?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. It's the radar and the visual. The radar will give you a really good idea of the storm intensity, the size of the hail, and then visually you can tell just from years of chasing how it looks, how the clouds are formed, how symmetrical the clouds are. They're holding together, falling apart, the winds and things like that. The other day when matter of fact, 2 days ago when I left Texas, we chased a storm, and the hook was right over. What we call the hook is the area that wraps around when you can have a tornado, and it was like right on top of us. And the clouds were coming down to the ground right next to us. It was actually pretty crazy. But it was both the radar and my own observations that was able to tell me, we were close, but we were in a safe location at that moment. So it's using both of those things, the visuals and the electronics.
Excellent, thanks.
So last year we had kind of like a tornado outbreak in Kansas City, I believe like around May 22nd. I know that was the Joplin tornado, but within like a week, everybody was really scared about the storms that were coming in after that. So I know one touched down like 100 feet from my house, and I mean, what stops a tornado that touches down? Like you get a tornado that touches down, what makes it continue to be a tornado, and why doesn't like most touchdowns form a tornado?
It's kind of complicated when you talk about what happens near the surface with a tornado. Scientists know pretty much what goes on from the inside the cloud down to the base of the cloud, but then what happens between the base of the cloud and the ground is still somewhat unknown. But it's just really, when you talk about the formation of a tornado, what keeps them going, it's really the wind fields and the surface is one of the most important things. You have to have a certain amount of wind feeding into the storm. You can't really have other storms nearby, or those winds will disrupt that flow. So there has to be really almost a perfect balance and a steady balance of winds at the surface. And sometimes, like the Joplin tornado had the absolute perfect. The upper winds were not perfect, but the lower winds were perfect that fed into the storm and kept the tornado, the actual vortex, spinning. So that's one of the things you look for, is the consistency of the wind, where they don't change a lot, and they're very strong over a long period of time and over a long area, and that way you can have a tornado on the ground for sometimes even over an hour in rare instances.
All right, Chelsea, do you have any questions for Warren?
I do, actually. I wanted to hear one of your most close call stories, or one of the most dangerous ones, since you're a storm chaser. We've all seen movies where they've come close, or, I just wanted to hear, what's something that would really be kind of disturbing for the rest of us to hear.
Probably the time I got food poisoning. That would be disturbing. I think you're asking about storm-related things. Probably hailstorms. When you run into hail that's like, grapefruit size, that's really scary, because unlike a tornado, you can see a tornado and drive away from it relatively. It sounds scary, but you can do it. You can stay away. But once you're in very large hail, like softball, baseball, even grapefruit-sized hail, it's really nerve-wracking, because there's not much you can do except hope that it's either going to stop real soon or you can drive out of it. But the problem with driving in it is you may just be driving along with it as it's falling. You can actually stay in it quite a while. And I've seen cars that were really destroyed. All the windshield's gone. The plastic bumpers ripped off, the mirrors, the headlights, the roof actually caved in. So it's very scary. And I've been in that a couple times. One time in particular, near the Kansas and Colorado border, we actually lost the front windshield and we lost the side windshield. But it literally sounds like someone's got a shotgun right outside your car, just blasting over these things. They're absolutely deafening. If someone was sitting next to you, so loud, if someone was sitting next to you in the seat, you wouldn't be able to hear what they're saying when you have that kind of hail hitting, especially if there's a lot of it. So those situations to me are probably the scariest, because you just don't have any control, and you're really at the mercy of the hail until it stops falling.
Warren, may I ask a very quick question about that hailstorm? What year was that? Because I think I may have been in that exact hailstorm.
Well, I think it was quite a few years ago. It was probably at least 15 years ago.
04? No, not 04, okay.
This would be quite a while back. And I think it ended up going through liberal Kansas, doing several $1 million worth of crop damage.
Okay, I was thinking of the one that was basically about 20 miles east of Lyman, about 04. It literally blew out our car's windshield, and there was straight line winds that were horrific.
Yeah, interesting story. I don't know if you know Springfield, Colorado. It's way out east. There was a drive-in movie theater for years, and then the back side of it had like these two giant holes in the wood on top. And I knew they were from hell, you could tell. They eventually tore down the theater, and I wanted to find the wood that had those holes in it, because I wanted to keep it as a souvenir. But I did measure, it was 3/4 inch plywood, and the hole was, I think it was like 4 inches wide.
Wow.
So you can imagine what force it would take to drive something through 3/4 inch plywood that size. And I've actually got pictures of it somewhere, but it just shows you the force of hail.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I think everyone has seen the movie Twister, and I know that sparked my interest in tornadoes, but I know that there's a lot of, not really true things about tornadoes in that. What's the most major, flaw technologically with that movie about tornadoes?
Probably that you don't go chasing with Helen Hunt all day. Probably the biggest flaw there. Well, there's many of them, and I just know because I chase storms. But obviously, it would be the one where you start in the morning, and you chase all day, and there's tornadoes everywhere. That doesn't happen, and you wouldn't get as close as they got and survive. I mean, the car was spinning around things. There'd be so much debris flying around you'd be killed. Some of it was actually pretty accurate. The other thing was probably, I'm trying to think of one of the really strange errors in it. It doesn't come to mind right away, but there was quite a few things that were really kind of pushed a little bit as far as chasing goes. But one of the things they captured, which kind of ended up being true, was how the different teams would compete with each other. You see a lot of that now with the scientists trying to get out there and compete for different types of grants and things, and they always want to be closer. So some of that actually came true. It kind of predicted that in the movie, although that wasn't necessarily the case at the time. But certainly you wouldn't see that much activity. It would be very difficult to see in a single day.
Thank you.
And also, I should say the scientific instruments they use in that's there's no such thing as that. They don't try to put that in. They put little instruments. They used to try to put little instruments in tornadoes, but that's rarely done now because they have radar trucks that can do the same thing from 20 miles away.
Yeah, I was wondering, like they had the Dorothy, and I was wondering if that was true. So, and also I know there's a guy that's trying to film the eye. Is that something that a lot of storm chasers are going after, trying to get a video camera like inside the tornado? Is that something that storm chasers are wanting to do, or is that just it's not going to help like the scientific field at all?
That's zero application for scientific science. Science, they have Doppler and dual pole radars now from 10 miles, 20 miles away. They can do a much better job. The problem with one person is, if you know anything about scientific data, one set of data from a very small location does you no good. You have to have multiple sets over a large area to compare the data and be able to make comparative analysis. We can't do that with just one. They do it on TV. They shoot little rockets that go up 10 feet and start grass fires and things. It's just not gonna happen with that. That's all smoke and mirrors. You need a lot of data. I mean, they had a research project out there. Vortex was the name for 2 years, and they had literally hundreds of people and 40, 50 vehicles involved. So it just shows you if you're really going to do it, you have to really have a pretty Herculean effort to gather the data. It's going to do really good. But no, being inside would do no good. And the odds of going inside and living in a tornado, from the cars I've seen when they're hit, what they do would just be absolutely. You could put something remote down that was heavy, but I don't think you're going to see inside of a tornado like it's going to be hollow inside, because it's the way the vortices are. They're multiple vortices, and there's no such thing. It's like a hurricane where you're going to get the eye above it.
Definitely. So
I have a question, if I can jump in.
Go ahead.
With the with this current storm system, with the school bus camera that captured the tornadic activity in Henryville, Indiana, does that have any type of scientific weight that meteorologists or storm chasers like yourself can use? That any data that may be gathered from that video?
Usually it doesn't. The only thing that some of that video does is engineering. They can look at it and see what a tornado does to say houses when it hits them, so they can correlate. In other words, if they know that what they saw on the radar when say a tornado hits a certain kind of building, they can go back and time it and figure out what they were looking at on the radar and maybe correlate the damage to what they were seeing. But the close-up stuff and trying that has absolutely no scientific advantage. It's all just YouTube stuff, because, again, with all the data they have now with satellite and radar trucks and things like that, you can get a lot more data over a large area. But it does help engineering. I mean, engineering, if you get tornadoes from a distance, it'll still show you the strength of what they're capable of doing.
Awesome, thank you.
I actually had another question, if I could pop in. Obviously, as a scientist, you go many directions. I was just wondering what inspired you to be a storm chaser. There's a certain story there, or just kind of fell into it?
When I got out of college, I was working for newspapers and magazines as a photographer, and I got tired of shooting my dog of the week and the rodeo parade and city council meetings. So what I would do is I'd go out and try to shoot the crazy stuff like fires and riots and all the wild stuff. I found that a lot more exciting, and eventually I'd go up and shoot lightning on the side of the mountains here in Arizona, and then that led to going out in Tornado Alley, and at the time there was no other journalist who was specializing in weather photography, so I just happened to come along at the right time in the right place to make a really good career out of it when I first started, which now everybody has a camera, and things have changed a lot from it used to be. But I love being outdoors. I love traveling. I love, my work. When I get up in the morning, I never know what I'm going to see. It may be just a regular rain cloud, or I may see the world's most amazing tornado or storm cloud. So to me, that's real exciting. It's almost like a treasure hunt, going out and never knowing day to day what I'm going to encounter.
That is awesome. What is your next stop? Do you know yet?
Well, right now I've got get business stuff done because, half of it's chasing and then half of it's getting all the regular business thing. I have to look for sponsors because we need sponsors to help pay for all this stuff and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of business and PR work and things like that involved. And then all the footage I have that has to be distributed to agents and things like that. So there's a lot of work, but then I still keep my eyes out there, especially we were talking earlier, like the Denver area. If it came down to where there were 2 or 3 days where it really looked like something was going to happen, I would probably redeploy. But then again, I need to take a rest because we have the monsoons coming up, and then right on the heels of that will be the hurricane season, which is really becoming my big season now, more than tornadoes, because with hurricanes, it kind of separates the real chasers from the amateurs, because if you go out there and put yourself in the wrong place, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. So that's one thing about hurricane chasing. It still has that kind of final frontier thing to it where there's not a lot of people doing it. And I really enjoy that part of chasing more than ever.
Definitely.
May I chime in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Warren, 2 quick questions. What is one thing you haven't been able to do that you would either like to see or do in the storm chasing field?
There's certain shots, tornado shots, that I would love to get. I guess it's from being, an artist too, at the same time being a journalist. There's certain shots I kind of dream of accomplishing. I really couldn't even tell you what it would be. It would just be, the perfect tornado shot. I don't know if there's such a thing, or what it would even look like. And I think that's kind of the driving force, is to, again, the unknown of going out and doing that. I think that would certainly be one thing. And probably I'd love to have another. Well, I wouldn't want to see another hurricane like Katrina, but something that large on the coast, I would love to experience something like that from a safe vantage point, be able to shoot, something that crazy. So there's a few. I'd like to shoot a volcano. I'd like to shoot the northern lights and a few other types of phenomena.
And I understand what you were saying. Last thing, what was your darkest day in chasing?
Darkest day is probably when the lights went out from a lightning storm. Just kidding.
I walked into that one.
Got it.
Probably the darkest day would be actually on my first chase in May 22nd, 1987, which I just marked the 25th anniversary of, when I ended up in Saragossa, Texas, this small little Texas town that had been almost literally wiped out by a tornado. That phrase is used too much, but literally 99.9% of this town was gone. And unfortunately, a lot of children were killed in a graduation ceremony where the parent didn't really pay much attention to the weather. It was real tragic. But then I would say that was the darkest day. Ironically, the first day I went chasing as a journalist, I think that probably changed the way I look at storms from a lot of other people, is that even though it's a lot of fun and exciting, there's still a dark side to it. And one of the reasons I try to do a lot of work when I can, speaking engagements and education, things like that, when I have the opportunity.
Thanks, Warren.
I have a question. There's time for one more. From your previous story, when you said that they didn't really pay attention to the weather, I did see that Kansas City actually implemented a new warning system. The National Weather Service did. What is the biggest misconception? Why doesn't the public really, take heed when there are storms coming in? Is there something that the public should be knowledgeable about?
Well, that's a great question, and that was one of the complaints about some of the TV shows, was that they were desensitizing people. They were saying, well, you can go out and do this. You can get really close. You don't have to be afraid. You can grab a camera and go outside, and anybody can do it. And part of the proof of the pudding of that now is when you go out in some cities, there's literally hundreds of people out on the road, like there was April 14th this year, that have this kind of invincibility feeling, because a lot of these shows don't, say, for instance, show the bodies that are ripped apart by tornadoes or the families that are destroyed or things. They kind of make it into almost like a jackass event where you go out and it's all, fun and games. They don't really focus on what storms do. So a lot of people, I think, are somewhat desensitized, and they don't really take it serious. And of course, when something happens, they always say they got no warning. But even during Joplin, there was that whole warning was, I think it was a moderate risk. There were watches out, there were things that were out, but a lot of people, just didn't pay attention for whatever reason. And I think that's the biggest problem, is just apathy in people's attitudes towards severe weather. It's not really a threat unless it's there, and usually it's too late.
All right, we'll do 2 more questions. Ryan, you got one more for us?
Sure do. So yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, in Denver, we had a tornado warning, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm from California, so this was like my first kind of extreme weather event apart from earthquakes. But what struck me was that it's so beautiful outside. The clouds and kind of the environment surrounding it is kind of this like fierce beauty matched with like kind of the potential for danger or whatnot. Has that kind of guided your perspective as an artist? I know you mentioned kind of that you're an artist and a journalist, and so has that kind of drew you further into your art, the kind of extreme weather?
Yeah, I learned a long time ago that it's not all about the tornadoes. As a matter of fact, nowadays, it's from a business point, the best photos are not the tornadoes. It's all the other, like you were saying, the beautiful cloud formations, the unusual things. And that's something I'm always looking for, because with storms, you have a lot of gray, you don't have a lot of color. So anytime you can throw, sunset light, or like you were saying, the clouds when they go up over the city, those kind of things. I enjoy seeing that as much as I do the storms, because those are like a snowflake. They're never the same. The sky's never the same. It's always different. And whenever you have any color added to that, especially late in the day, it's really magical when these things all come together. But yeah, it is, when you see the storm clouds gather and they start to build, there is that anticipation, and it has all its own beauty of itself, even before the storms actually get going.
Absolutely.
All right, and one more question. What is the biggest safety tip that you can give to people in any storm, hurricane, tornado? What would you recommend people do to keep themselves and their loved ones safe?
What I always tell people is, if you live anywhere that there's storm, there's only going to be 4 or 5 days a year that you really have to worry about. And on those days, you really need to pay attention. Look at the morning, see what the forecast is, and most importantly, have a weather radio. And I know they just started a new program where they're going to be sending out warnings on cell phones now automatically. So that'll help too. But the best thing is just stay informed on those very few days where it's dangerous, and have some plan. Have a plan. If you're at work, your kids are at school, you're at home, have some plan. If in the rare event something happens, have a plan. I wish a lot of people in Joplin would have done that. They would have had a plan. Some people did. I spoke to some people who had planned to go over to a neighbor's house who had a cellar, and they survived. So the important thing is, on those days, just 2 things: stay aware of what's going on, and have some kind of plan.
That's great advice. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us on this Google Plus Hangout. Thanks everybody for joining. Hopefully we'll do this sometime soon. Check him out on stormchaser.com. I believe that.
Thanks, Warren.
I believe
Thanks,
you'll find a lot of information there. And have you also written a few books, I saw?
Well, my book, Storm Chasers, is on Amazon. Make sure it's the Storm Chaser by me. Some other guy made one and copied it. Mine's the one that's the good book, Storm Chaser. Was it Life Quest to Find the Perfect Storm? I think that's what it is. It's an ebook. So
all right.
The original, the Weather Channel did it, and they took all the good parts out, but the ebook has all the juicy parts in it.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to check that out, and I'll be posting this on YouTube, and so we can show it off and hopefully do this again soon. So, thanks everybody. Thanks Warren for hanging out, and
Great.
Thank you.
we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks, Warren.
All right. Bye. Take care.
Bye, everyone.